Do you ever feel like things will be up and flowing and moving one day and you'll be riding a high wave? Maybe you have a bunch of clients that book in one day, or you're looking at your bank account and you're like, yeah, buddy, life is good. Or maybe you're just really, really inspired. And then the next day you wake up after having this beautiful high and everything feels like it's going wrong. You're not booking any clients, you're auditioning and hearing nothing back. Maybe this goes on for a week or 2 weeks. You have a really slow period after you had such a great experience where you felt like, I broke through, I made progress, right? There's something called the law of rhythm.
Let me tell you that I've had this dream since I was 13 watching MTV.
Which states that life naturally has an ebb and flow, like the ocean, right? It's not flat, still water. There wouldn't really be much excitement and movement in that, but things ride like waves, right? You have ups, you have downs, you have ups, you have downs. The key to the law of rhythm is not trying to force the water to stop moving, right? To never have a low period ever again, even though we think that sounds good, right? Well, sure, I never want to be broke again. And you can get to the point where you're never back down at this extreme low. But to say that you want things to be absolutely riding at the highest level 24/7 all the time means that there's zero contrast, which means that there's really not much growth because even if you're going up, 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 you're going to hit a point where if you haven't had any contrast, just like when you're looking at a photo, if there's zero contrast, you don't know what you do want if you haven't experienced what you don't want in some way. That doesn't have to be extreme, right? But if you've never had any pain, any struggle, any, downsides to life, you won't really understand what it feels like to be loved, to be feeling healthy and wealthy. Oh my God, after you get sick, right? You get the flu. What is the one thing you think, oh, I just want to feel better? And when you have that first day where you don't have a fever, where you're not absolutely achy and exhausted in bed, even if you're still sniffling and you're not 100%, you're like, oh my God, I'm just so happy to not be in bed feeling like absolute death. I don't even care about anything else right now. Like, there's just so much gratitude, right? It doesn't mean you always have to get sick in order to appreciate being well. But there is a natural law of rhythm that happens, and it's important because you're supposed to have contrast to grow. Okay? Now, the key is getting to a point where you're able to move with these waves in a sense that you're not being dragged down every time there's an undertide dramatically, right? Practically drowning and then getting back up. And then everything's perfect and you're riding the surfboard and you're on the wave and then you get pulled down again and you feel like you're going to die and then you get back up. You want to be able to ride the waves with ease, okay? That does not mean you're not going to feel pain. That does not mean that you're not going to have periods where you're not really booking anything and you're not sure what's going on. That doesn't mean you're not going to have periods where you don't have any inspiration to paint or draw and you kind of feel blocked or just not motivated to do anything. You're still going to have those times. I certainly do. But it will be less extreme. Okay, so again, we want to have the contrast because it moves us forward and creates immense growth. Okay, but we want to get to a point where we have, nowadays we talk about having a calm nervous system, right? But it is true. When our nervous system is calm enough, when things happen that we don't like, it sucks. And you're like, oh man, I'm bummed out. I haven't booked anything in 2 weeks, or I haven't gotten a single like on this photo that I posted, or no one cares about my art. They haven't come to my art gallery. It's been like a month. You're still going to have some disappointment in life. But when you have that calm nervous system and you are sort of at a level emotionally where things can just kind of come and go, right? Then you'll be able to not only feel more calm and happier in general and be able to just ride that wave, but also you'll start seeing the beauty in the contrast. So you'll start seeing, wow, you know what? It was actually really cool that I had this period where everything was really slow because it allowed me to focus on this instead. And this area in my life really needed a little bit of love. Or it taught me that, I wasn't really appreciating the jobs, the gigs, the clients, the attention I was getting. And I was so focused on getting more and more and more that I wasn't enjoying what I had. Like there are so many perspective shifts that happen when you slow down and say, hey, okay, there's gonna be waves and there's gonna be ups and downs, but, if we can kinda just stay level, then we can feel the emotions, but not get pulled down by them. And sometimes you may be at a point in your life where chemically stuff is going on. You went through some crazy trauma, you're sick, something happened to where everything feels extreme. And so it's not bad, you're not doing it wrong. If you're at the point where you're getting dragged under, it's perfectly okay. Sometimes people choose to go and get therapy or take medication or do things that might be, drastic but necessary. I don't know, go on a silent retreat for a week, have a spiritual awakening, like whatever it takes is fine. But we all want to get to this point where we're not so dramatically shifted by what goes on because then you're not controlled by circumstances. And so many of us in the artistic world are so controlled by the attention we're getting, the progress we're making in numbers, right? Your definition of success is based on how many gigs you're booking or how many people are buying your art or whatever, or if you've published professionally with a big publishing house. And if you haven't hit those milestones, then you're not successful. And that is not a very sustainable way to live, my friends. I know from experience because my whole journey up until now, this is shifting for me now, but my whole journey was based on, yeah, that's cool, but I'm really trying to get here. Okay, yeah, that's nice, but hello, I'm trying to get here. Why am I taking tiny baby steps over years, right? It's been X amount of years. I should be way further along. Living your life like that is not sustainable. And so many creators and artists get depressed because they just feel like the world isn't listening. Nobody cares. And I'm putting my heart and soul into this and not getting anywhere. And all I want to do is what I love for a living 24/7. And I'm not being given that opportunity. And we get dragged down under the wave, my friends. So, what I've been trying to do, because I kind of have a week going on, I just got back from Canada, Toronto, which was an amazing experience, but I had to take Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday off because Wednesday night I did a little work, but I had to prep for the next day, leaving early in the morning to get on the plane. And then I was in Canada Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I was scheduled to fly back at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time and get home by 8, which is basically the whole day. I wouldn't have been able to work Saturday either. Long story short, flight got delayed, flight got canceled, rescheduled when I was already at the airport ready to go for 6 hours later. So instead of flying at 10:30, I flew at 5:15 p.m., stopped in Detroit, and then flew to Vegas. I got home at 10 instead of 8. So anyways, long story short, that was part of that ebb and flow. I had a wonderful experience in Canada at this networking event, and oh my God, it's so amazing. And then I got home, or that day that I was flying home, it was like, oh, what is all this stress and struggle and cancel? Why? I was riding so high, and then this feels like crap. So those moments are going to happen. But, when I got back, because I had been off for a few days, I hadn't been auditioning, in my mind, I was already fighting against that story that I'm taking a few days off. This is 3 to 4 days of not auditioning, so there goes all those opportunities that, I could have booked, and now I'm gonna have a little bit of a slowdown. Like, it was already starting in my head that things were gonna be slow the next week because I missed a few days. That is a belief and mentality that we want to work on, first of all, but that's another discussion for another day. The stories we tell ourselves about situations really determine the outcome most of the time. But, anyways, putting that aside, when I came back and I started back up working, which was Monday of this week, today I'm recording this on Wednesday. It's been slow. I've still had work coming in. I have work to do today. I'm working on finishing an audiobook, which I'll have done this week. I have a little bit of music stuff, and I've done auditions Monday, Tuesday, and today, Wednesday. But I haven't booked anything. I don't see a lot of short lists coming in, which short lists are when the client listens to your read and likes you. They don't know who they want to pick yet, but they maybe have a top five. So getting shortlisted means you're in their top. They want to hear you again, right? Haven't got shortlisted since I left for Canada. That's like almost an entire week, right? So I am in that position today where, and that's why I wanted to make this video where I'm like, oh man, I had all this momentum built up and going and booking and booking, and it was all exciting. And now it feels like a lull. What do you do in the lull period when you're feeling like you're not really riding the high anymore? You're coming down a little bit. What I have been loving to do lately, what I did today, is saying, ooh, this must be a great opportunity to put a little love into some other things that maybe I've been neglecting, not in a negative way, but just like maybe things that I've been kind of putting off or other things that could use a little attention. Cool, let's do some administrative work. So I shredded all of my my shredder, my document shredder had like a pile this big of old paperwork that needed to be shredded. I don't want to throw, sensitive information in the trash, right? So I shredded all the papers, threw all that stuff away. I sent off the last things that my accountant needed for my taxes, just admin stuff, right? I checked on all my plants today because in Vegas we've had this weird, amazing, like warm wave that has come in. It's been like 70 every single day. So I went outside. It felt amazing. And I pruned a lot of plants that really needed pruning. They had a lot of dry, dead leaves and branches. So I clipped those back and now I'm recording this and I still have a little bit of work to do later, but I just switched my attitude, and that's the key is switching your attitude and your focus to rather than, "Oh, I'm not getting a lot of bookings. Things are slow." Don't say that. Don't tell that story. I'm not saying ignore how you feel. I'm not saying lie to yourself or other people, right? If someone asks you like, "How are things going?" I don't mean being like, "Great, I booked 10 gigs this week when you've booked 0." I don't mean lie, right? What I mean is switch the perspective from things are slow, I'm in a lull, I have no inspiration right now, I just kind of feel blah to, oh, a new opportunity. Oh, let's see what we can do with this. Oh, you know what? Maybe actually, I probably need to catch up on a little rest because my body's been pushed to the limit a little bit this past week. The last 2 days in a row, I woke up late. I decided to go back to bed. Usually for the past 2 months, I've been setting an alarm because I've never been a morning person in the past, trying to adjust that a bit. I've been setting my alarm at 7:30, getting up a few minutes after 7:30 because I snooze at least once. 7:35, I get up. I take my medication for my stomach and all that because I need to take it before I eat. And then I do my workout, take a shower, make breakfast, and start the day, right? But the last 2 days in a row, I woke up and I was just like, you know what? I feel unusually tired. Not just groggy, but I really feel like I just woke up out of REM sleep and I'm like delirious and my body really wants to stay asleep. So I got up, I took my medicine, I said hi to everybody in the house and I said, I'm going back to sleep. If I sleep more than an hour, come get me. And my husband did yesterday and this morning. He came in an hour later and was like, okay. I think it was because he wanted breakfast and I always make breakfast. So that was probably really the reason why he was good about waking me up an hour later. Anyways, just putting him on blast. But the point is, I adjusted, and just being able to adjust and pivot to those times and situations where everything feels a little off can really, really help your mood, and it can help your reality shift because you're not looking at it as this terrible thing, this panic and fear. Because what happens is, a lot of people get confused about this manifestation thing and they think like, oh, I don't believe in that crap because you're basically saying that it's like, woo, magic. If I think negative thoughts, bad things happen. If I think positive thoughts, good things happen. It's not really like that. It's more so what you consistently feel and think and believe to be true, you will experience more of because it's science, right? If I have never seen a certain car before, I go to the dealership and I test drive this like very, you know, fancy or unique car. I didn't know about Porsche Macans until recently and Porsche Cayennes. Does that mean I'd never seen them before? No, I never noticed them. Okay, I didn't suddenly just start seeing, specific colors too, like orange and green Porsche Macans, because the universe was like, ooh, magic. And now I see them. They've always been there, but my point of focus was never on them until the last couple months. I started seeing them, and I was like online when I was looking at Porsche Macans because I saw one person driving one and was like, what's that car? That car's nice. Looked it up, long story short, decided what colors would I like. Went up to see if there were green and orange. There are orange, there are not green unless it's electric, so I'd have to get it wrapped. But anyways, I saw one last week. I saw a green Porsche Macan. And I was like, okay, right? Now I'm seeing more of them, green and orange color. They're rare, but I see them more now because my point of attraction, my point of focus, rather, is there. So when your point of focus is on, oh, it's slow again, and what am I doing wrong right now? Like, what do I need to do to fix it? Then you start thinking and feeling and acting from desperation. And so you attract more situations that make you feel desperate, right? Or you make decisions that I don't believe there are necessarily wrong decisions, but you make decisions out of integrity with what you want. For example, as an artistic person who is a freelancer, I will more likely take gigs and jobs and push my services in a way that will make less than I normally would ask for, right? I cheapen my prices, I cheapen my value of my services because I'm desperate and I just need to pay the bills, and because I'm worried because this week I haven't gotten any bookings and I got to make it happen. And it's totally understandable to be in that position where you are just trying to logically think your way out of a situation. But it rarely works out. And if it does, it's a very stressful way to function. So if you can dial that back and say, okay, I'm going through a lull. I'm going through a week where I don't feel inspired, where not much is coming in financially, or, all my views are down, or I don't know what to do. Maybe it's been a month, maybe it's been a couple months, longer than that. Shift the mindset first into, okay, how would I like to feel right now? Yes, I would like for, of course, I'm going to focus on wanting everything to change and to be riding a high again. But right now, in this moment, how do I want to feel? How can I feel better about this without changing a thing? Because yes, we want to focus on the future. Yes, we want to focus on what we would love to happen next. But in this moment, if you are always thinking of what's next and never ever staying in the present and going, how can I feel good about the present in some way? Then you are always going to be waiting for the next high, right? It's kind of like literally like a drug addict. Like you're living off the highs. And so you need more and more, right? And that's how people end up ODing, because they just need more and more and more, and their tolerance builds up and they need more, and they can't handle more and more. They can't handle the time in the down, right? When they're coming down. It's so true. I've never been an addict or really done any drugs ever, but except for marijuana. I don't think that counts. But anyways, but it's true in general that we tend to look for the highs and wait for them to feel good. We have to find a way to feel good in the down periods, right? In the downtime, in the waiting. And I think for me, I have spent many, many years, really my whole life up until recently, not necessarily feeling terrible in the low points. Like I get emotional, I go through stress, but I'm pretty good at being resilient in the really low periods of life and getting back up and staying positive, even if I'm crying, even if I'm scared, whatever. For me, it's the waiting. I have always had a harder time with the waiting periods. And as a result, I end up manifesting more waiting and impatient because I'm focused on the fact that I'm waiting for the next thing, waiting for the next booking, waiting for the next song to place on TV, waiting for the next royalty check, waiting for this. So I'm always in this energy of waiting rather than being in this energy of, okay, well, that's not happening right now. It's been a couple months since I've gotten a new song placement. Why don't we focus on something else right now? Because that's coming. That's always working out. And I know that I'll be guided to more opportunities the more that I stay inspired, the more that I keep working on my talent and keep networking with people. Like, sure, there are strategies and new things that I can implement to grow that, and I will do that, but I'm not going to obsess on the waiting. So what could I do in the meantime while I'm also working on that thing to just enjoy the moment, right? So you don't have to fill your time necessarily, but fill your waiting space. Fill that gap with something. And that could be silence. That could be going into nature. It could be video games. It could be whatever feels expansive, though, to you. Whatever feels good to you. Don't let anybody tell you that it should be this, should be that. I've even experienced that in kind of I'm very into spiritual woo-woo manifestation, all that. In that community, though, or in that kind of scope of different teachers and authors and, people who spread that information and philosophize, so to speak, I've heard a lot of people say, you shouldn't fill your time. You shouldn't fill your mind with things. Then you're always needing to stimulate yourself and your brain. You should, if you're feeling like the need to fill a void, then you should absolutely do nothing and you should meditate. And I used to feel guilty because I'm like, oh, what's wrong with me? I constantly need stimulation. I guess like I need to just sit and meditate more. And sometimes meditation I meditate every day. So sometimes, yes, I do need to sit and ground myself because I am like reaching and I'm way too high up here needing stimulation. But a lot of the times it's just because I'm a really excited person and I like to do a lot of different things and I like variety. And, I'm high energy. So there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with me feeling like, I want to do this. Okay, I'm bored with this. I want to do this. People call that ADHD. You know what? I don't. I have nothing against people getting a diagnosis and taking medication. If that feels expansive to you and like it's going to help you right now, do it by all means. But I personally don't align with it because I feel like a lot of us diagnose ourselves with different issues because we just don't know how to function with the way our body or the way our brain wants to do things, right? If you're a high energy person and you're very creative and your brain is always going a million miles a minute and you have a million ideas, maybe you don't need medication. Maybe you just need to, A, give yourself the space and the freedom to pursue a lot of these things and have fun with them. Or B, find some way to bring a little bit of structure to them, just enough to kind of organize your mind a bit and maybe even organize the things around you. Ooh, if you're somebody with ADHD and you're like, blah, 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 organizing your space, cleaning out your car or your closet, oh, baby, that helps so much you have no idea. And it's okay if it gets messed up a week later, right? It's fine. It doesn't matter. But anyhow, the point is, my friends, it's okay to be in a lull. It's going to go up and down. Yes, you can reach a point, and you will reach many points in many areas of life where you are much more stabilized, where you're not going from 10 bookings this week to 0, 10 to 0, 10. Like you'll come to a point where it's way more stable, right? Where you kind of have a flow going of like, okay, generally between summer and early spring, I'm pretty popping in business, or like this season tends to be really great. And, I know that I can shift it to where the slower seasons have some more momentum going, but you'll kind of get a general idea after a while of where things are. And they can stabilize, but you are not meant to live a life that is just climbing perfectly with nothing ever happening that you would consider to be a contrasting experience. Because again, if you're on that ride where you're just always going up, right? Then there's not going to be any growth. It's going to be pretty boring. And that's not an esoteric principle. It's truth. Again, if you're looking at a photograph and there's zero contrast, what are you looking at? It's not right. I shouldn't say it's not right. It's not dynamic. And we all want to live a dynamic life, even if you think that, well, I just want to, none of you watching this are like this, but I know some people outside of the artistic community who are very much like, I just want to live in a simple town, retire at 65, downsize my house. Like, that's fine, but Trust me, there are still things in their life that they value excitement in, right? Even if it's like the guy who's like, I love fishing, right? Like that guy, I guarantee you, is obsessed with fishing gear, right? Or the strategies around fishing. And they want to, whether they know it or not, they want to expand that experience. You see them getting a nicer boat, a nicer fishing rod, more accessories. They're experimenting with different bait, right? There's something in their life that they experience contrast in up and down, and they get excited when they break through. So even in the most boring, supposedly, situations or lifestyles, you want contrast. Okay. And wanting it, or rather appreciating it, does not mean that you are attracting more of it or that you're asking for it. It just means that you recognize that there is a law of rhythm. And we're just here to stabilize ourselves emotionally more so that, you know, when you're having those lulls, like I am right now this week, you see it as a blessing and you see it as an opportunity to give a little love to something else and allow the amazing things that are happening next for you to unfold, because pieces of the puzzle need to come together sometimes, right? That happens a lot when I see gigs that I've auditioned for. Some of them are right away, they book within days, and others, I'm like, "What is this for?" When I get a booking, I'm like, "Huh, I don't even remember this," and it was weeks ago, a month ago, and sometimes they'll even message me and be like, "Oh, sorry for the delay, we're just working on XYZ. We are waiting for the new script, we're waiting for the green light from the company." So, pieces needed to come together before you were able to do it, right? So, I'm not here to tell you to be patient. I'm here to tell you to shift your energy to focus on what is constructive for you, right? And not think of it as being in a slow period. Stop saying slow period. Stop saying down period, downtime, right? Just, look at it as a time to get a little extra rest, to catch up on admin stuff, all right? And we will see you next week. Thanks for dropping by, Dreams Not Deferred. And I love you. Okay, bye.